Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Melanie Barham. I'm going to be chairing the call today. I'm the co-chair of Equestrian Canada Health and Welfare's Committee. Just to give a brief introduction to this call, the purpose of the call is to provide a national forum to inform veterinarians, members of the horse industry, and stakeholders of issues important to health and welfare in Canada. The calls are recorded and will be posted on the Equestrian Canada Health and Welfare site when it's completed and edited. So just be aware of that if you're asking questions. We're experiencing a couple of technical difficulties. Usually we mute all the lines, but we're having a bit of a challenge with that. So we are asking everyone to just mute their phones so that we're not hearing any background noise throughout the presentation. So I haven't heard Dr. Carolyn James join the line yet. Carolyn, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Oh, hi, Carolyn. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
If you'd like to go ahead with the EIA outbreak update, that would be great.
Okay, great. So thanks, Melanie, for inviting me on the call. As mentioned, well, I'm a veterinarian with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, and I work on the EIA file. The request was to provide a short update on the EIA situation in Western Canada this summer. So I thought I'd start out just by mentioning to those who might not know that the CFIA does have an EIA webpage where information is there that can be found on the current control policy, as well as where and when we're finding cases. The page, we update that on the 10th of every month, along with all the other federally reportable disease updates. Not totally knowing who all's on the call, I just thought I'd touch on a few key facts about EIA and our control program. So it is one of our federally reportable diseases, and it affects the horses as well as the other members of the equine family. There is no human risk for this disease. We have no cure for the disease. Infected animals are infected for life, and we don't have an available vaccine. The virus is almost exclusively transferred by infected blood, and most commonly it is naturally transmitted on the mouth parts of large biting flies, such as horse and deer flies. Although most of the infected horses appear clinically healthy at the time of testing, we do rarely see sudden death. One of the challenges that we have with this disease is that it is unpredictable, and infected animals can express different forms of the disease over time. Of particular note is that when they're exhibiting the clinical form, the level of virus that's in their blood is extremely high, and their level of infectiousness is obviously increased at that time. Our program, our national program has two main components. First being our owner-initiated testing or voluntary testing to comply with industry requirements to rule out clinical disease or to comply with export requirements. When a positive case is picked up with this testing method, the CFIA does respond as per our current program policy, which can include implementing movement controls such as quarantines, testing identified contacts, and ordering the humane destruction of the infected animals and paying compensation. I'll just quickly mention that I'm going to update about the summer, but I just thought I'd quickly mention that we did have 9 positive cases in Saskatchewan in January and February of this year. They were on 4 separate premises that were found to be epidemiologically linked. The index case on that one was tested by an accredited vet because it had clinical signs consistent with EIA infection, and it ended up dying shortly after being sampled. There have not been any cases detected in Saskatchewan this summer. In June of this year, we've had positive cases identified in the province of Manitoba for the first time since 2006. The affected premises are located in the rural municipalities of St. Clemens, St. Andrews, Hanover, and Armstrong. The initial Manitoba case was confirmed by CFIA on June 9th, and since then a total of 13 positive horses on 5 separate premises have been identified. The last positive was confirmed on July 13th. The initial case was found as a result of accredited vet testing to satisfy a pre-movement biosecurity requirement that was in place on a premises. That investigation also ended up taking us to a premises in Saskatchewan where disease control actions were conducted, but no positives were found there, and that quarantine has been removed. During the CFI investigations, it was determined that at least one of the originally identified cases had attended organized commingling events in Manitoba within the 30 days prior to the being tested. So the CFI did contact the two organizers or associations involved so that they could inform their participants of the potential exposure and risk. Epidemiological linkages were determined for animals on 2 of the 5 affected Manitoba premises. The other 3 Manitoba premises were identified as a result of pre-entry testing for an event. There do appear to be linkages between all 5 of the affected premises, although the specifics can't be confirmed due to the limitations of our CFIA 30-day traceback period that we have in policy currently. So disease control actions have been completed on the index premises, and the remaining 4 are still under quarantine until final follow-up testing has been completed. The timing of that testing is based on when the last known contact occurred with an infected animal, so that means that the testing on these premises will start mid-August, and we should be wrapped up by mid-September. The quarantines will be removed once all of the on-premises contacts have received negative results, and all positive animals have been humanely euthanized at this point. We had a positive case identified on June 9th in Beaver County, Alberta, as a result of accredited vet testing. The horse had been exhibiting significant clinical signs consistent with an EIA infection, and it died shortly after being sampled. During the disease response, 2 more positives were identified on that index premises and a third on a second premises in Red Deer County. The 2 affected premises are still under quarantine. Follow-up testing should be completed by the end of August, and movement controls will be released once all of those horses on those premises test negative. In summary, there have been a total of 27 cases of EIA in Canada detected this year on a total of 12 separate premises. And as I mentioned at the beginning, if you'd like more information on where and when the cases have been found, I'd recommend you just visit the CFI EIA webpage. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Carolyn. Carolyn, are you able to stay on the line in case there's questions at the end?
I am not. Unfortunately, I have a conflict.
Okay, if there are any questions, please feel free to ask them at this point. Okay, great. So next we'll have, I'll be giving an update on the Equestrian Canada Health and Welfare, just an interim update kind of mid-show season. So since this is our first official update on the call, I'll give an overview of the committee. The Health and Welfare Committee is a committee of the board, and it has 9 members currently. Currently on the committee we have Dr. Greg Evans from Calgary, Dr. Glenn Sinclair from Manitoba, Dr. Mary Bell from Ontario, Dr. Alison Moore from Ontario, Sue Hawes, an FEI steward from British Columbia, Jill Barton, FEI steward from Ontario, Caitlin Gregoric from the Canadian Thoroughbred Horse Society, myself, and then my co-chair, Liz Saunders, who's president of the BC Horse Council and also from British Columbia. The committee meets a minimum of each quarter to discuss needs and will convene sooner than each quarter if needed, and we're in constant contact by email. We review injury and steward reports from shows, respond to issues of welfare as presented to us, and develop new rules and guidelines as needed, and also act as a liaison or expert panel for health and welfare issues for government liaising or where the board might need some expert opinion. We initiated discussions with CAS this past year and helped to get the first workshop together with the excellent team at CAS, who we'll hear from next. In the past year, with the help of EC staff, we've also developed a veterinary news list that veterinarians across Canada can sign up for free. They receive news alerts and pertinent information that they may not otherwise receive. So a recent one went out talking about the EIA updates and where to find information about that, in addition to some other health and welfare news. Interested veterinarians can sign up by emailing Callie McKenna at kmckenna@equestrian.ca. Recently, we've been working with the Veterinary Drug Directorate, whom we'll hear from in this call. We're seeking veterinarians who practice to be part of a short-term committee to comment on the necessity of drugs for our equine market. As you'll hear, there is going to be some serious changes coming in November 2017 to the accessibility of drugs. There will also be limited ability for those bringing drugs across the border. So VDD is asking us to provide our expertise to create a list of products that may be necessary to bring across the border for our own use importation. The list needs to be completed before November 2017 when the regulations change. So if you're a veterinarian and you practice, consider providing your expertise, and we really could use some help. Again, email Callie McKenna if you're interested in participating. It should be a fairly minimal commitment considering the time constraints that we have. The other thing that Dr. Rossier, who's the chair of the Medications Committee, wanted me to pass on is that there is an FEI veterinary course taking place in San Antonio, Texas, just prior to the AAP conference. And it is a requirement for any FEI veterinary delegate to repeat this course every 4 years, as opposed to 5 years, which it was in the past. And the deadline to sign up for that is September 15th. And that is the end of that's the end of our update. Are there any questions before we move on? Okay. Cheryl or Keith, are you on the line to provide an update from CAS?
Yes, it's Keith here, and Cheryl's unavailable, so I'll give an update on CAS. Currently, on CAS, we have several active groups, which include poultry, swine, dairy. We have an AMU group, aquatic, and an equine group. And there was a new website launched approximately 2 weeks ago now, too, and there's still some work that needs to be done on that website, but hopefully it will be a lot more user-friendly than the previous one. On the equine network health surveillance system, the purpose of that is to improve equine disease information sharing and sharing on a timely basis. So that's kind of our goal in the long term to be working on that. Within the equine group, we do have a core leadership group, which includes 9 people, and we meet approximately monthly and sometimes more often as required, and that certainly gives it the direction to the group. And also within the equine group, we have a couple of working groups, which one is working with EDCC, and we had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago, which has been our first official communications with them, and discussed how information would be shared between Canada and the U.S., and so that was a very productive meeting. We also have a case definitions group, which will help us to clarify when a disease is notified, to make sure that we have the proper information to share on the website, and also trying to identify which diseases we're going to start with, and that'll expand as we go along. I'm very pleased to say that we have great CFIA support, and certainly we've been getting notification of their reportable disease, which has been going onto our website as well. Now, the other source of information would be through the provinces. We're working with the CVOs and trying to work out some details of how we can communicate with them more effectively and sharing disease notifications. We're currently doing up a letter of support, which has been drafted, and it'll go to the various provincial industry groups, which will in turn be used to help lobby the provincial governments and the CVOs and getting this all worked out. The other area where we started working on is getting lab test data through a network of Canadian Animal Health Laboratory networks, and that will eventually feed into the CAS network and the equine network as well. And more recently, we have one of our core leadership members, Anne Britton, is now on a PHAC working group on mosquito-borne diseases. So once that gets more established, then we'll be feeding into that as well. So that's my report, Melanie.
Great. Thank you very much. And interested people can certainly go to the CAS website and if you're interested in having access to the login side of the site, then there's instructions on the website on how to sign up. It's simply signing a declaration, kind of a member's declaration, but anyone can be a member. Any interested party can be a member. Is that correct, Keith?
Yes, thank you, Melanie, for that.
Great. And you can check it out there. And we will be working with all of the industry groups, kind of going forward, because we would like we'd like to continue our industry support for the initiative and try to improve the flow and speed of information provincially to go across the country, so that we're informed of what's going on everywhere. Okay. Any other questions or comments before we move on? Okay. Is there somebody from the Veterinary Drug Directorate on the line?
Hi, Melanie. It's Manisha Mehrotra here.
Hi, Manisha. So this wasn't on the agenda. It was actually an error on our agenda, but we will have a presentation from the Veterinary Drug Directorate now. So go ahead, Manisha.
Okay. And I'm not sure if you have a slide deck which was distributed.
We're happy to send it out to everybody afterwards, but we don't.
Okay.
Nobody's using a web
Okay.
conferencing.
Okay, sure. And maybe I won't take too much time. We will have all the details in the slide deck, but just wanted to draw attention on a few things that are coming, and I think you did allude to those, some of the changes which are happening. And so just to take a step back, on May 17th of this year, we published a final set of regulatory amendments to the Food and Drug Regulations with regards to antimicrobial resistance and veterinary drugs. And also there are some non-regulatory initiatives happening and which may have some impact on equine sector and so we have put together a slide deck to explain all those details. But I just want to cover what is included, and we can go into a little bit details on the specific aspects which would impact the equine sector. And so there are 4 parts to this in the regulatory package. There are 4 main things which will be coming into force. At least part of them would be coming into force November 13th of this year. And the 2 sections which would be coming into force November 13th is the restriction for importation of veterinary drugs as well as active pharmaceutical ingredients coming in through the border. So starting November 13th, personal use of veterinary drugs, importation for personal use would be restricted, and so that only authorized products can be imported in for animals, for food-producing animals, and horses are included in that. And so for that, only exceptions would be that List B, and that would be sort of included, or the drugs which could go on List B, there is a set of criteria. And these criteria are, it cannot be a prescription drug, it cannot be a medically important antimicrobial, and it can be a product which is similar to a product already approved in Canada, but may be available, say, in the States a little bit cheaper than here. So as long as it does not compromise food safety or public health, it could be brought in, but then we have to ensure that product would be safe. So these drugs or these drug products, or foreign approved drug products, provided it meet all the criteria, can be nominated to go on List B. And this is something we need your input on. If there are certain products which routinely some of you do bring in through the border, we would like to know about it. Because come November 13, we don't want them stuck at the border if they do meet the criteria and could be nominated on List B. So we'll be happy to go through some details on those, on how to nominate a product. for List B. So that's specifically on the personal use purposes if some of the individuals are bringing it for the horse sector, so that change is coming. Another aspect of the regulatory package is the introduction of new pathway for veterinary health products. And some of you may be aware of the interim notification pilot program, which has been running for 5 years, and there are several horse products notified under that. So right now it's a third-party administered system. However, come November 13th, it would be administered by Health Canada. And we did send out a little bit more information by email, and Melanie, maybe we can share that email again with you so you can distribute it among your known individuals in equine sector. So that's a new pathway for having lower risk veterinary health products on the market. It would be a notification-based system as long as the ingredients are on the list which is established by Health Canada, and similar to list of admissible substance which is currently in the voluntary program. So that would be again coming into force in November. So these are the two aspects which would be coming into force in November of this year. Other aspects in this regulatory package is around increased oversight on importation of active pharmaceutical ingredients for veterinary drugs. And so there will be a good manufacturing practices required, mandatory for veterinary drugs. Exception would be the veterinary health products, but for the conventional veterinary drugs, there would be a requirement that they do meet the quality standards coming in the country. And also, if an active pharmaceutical ingredient is on the medically important antimicrobial list, or List A, then anyone importing those ingredients would have to have an establishment license given by Health Canada. So this is something new as well. The last piece of this regulatory package is that there would be a mandatory reporting requirements if somebody is importing or compounding a medically important antimicrobial. They'll have to provide an annual report to Health Canada on how much they're selling, how much of that ingredient is being sold, broken down by species, or an estimate broken down by species. So these are the 4 aspects included in the regulatory package. The last 2 would be coming into force a little bit later because for reporting requirements, it will be the calendar year of 2018. And the reporting would start as of January 1st, 2019 for the 2018 calendar year. So that's for the sales information. And for the GMP requirements or the good manufacturing or the quality requirements for active pharmaceutical ingredients, that would be phased, again, the implementation period would be phased from 1 year to 2 years. So a little bit delayed implementation for that aspect. Any questions on this part so far?
Okay, very quiet phone line today. Okay.
So another important piece is on the non-regulatory side of things. If I can continue?
Go ahead.
Is one, and which may impact the horse sector as well, is that we are moving all medically important antimicrobials to prescription status. So there were several of these products approved several decades ago, and it didn't go through the scrutiny which we do today for assessing antimicrobial resistance risks. So these products have been historically available over the counter because in the last 15 years or so, any new antimicrobial on the market, they have been given prescription status. So some of these older products would be moving to prescription status, and we've started the process, and the notice of the prescription drug list switch was released on July 5th. An important time to note is that starting February of next year, you'll be seeing some other drug product labels with the PR on them. However, the prescription drug rules would start to be enforced starting of December 2018. So none of these ingredients which are on medically important antimicrobial list would be available over the counter after December 2018. They have to be prescribed by a veterinarian before they can be bought. So that's a big change happening. It's going to impact about 340 products in total. And so it's a lot of change happening in that side of things. And also we'll be removing, and it's not much for horses sector, that all the growth promotion claims for medically important microbials would be phased out. So that's what I had to say, and again, I'll be happy to answer any questions, and we will be sending this slide deck.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Any other questions before we move to the next person? Okay, and now we'll have an update on equine competitions. Callie, did you want to take it away?
Hi, unfortunately we're having technical difficulties here at the office, so I don't have access to the report that I was planning to provide, but what I will be able to update you on is that thus far this season there have been 3 accidents at EC sanctioned competitions, which have resulted in horses being humanely euthanized as a result. I had some additional details, but I'm unable to access them at this time, but we have no documented reports of abuse to any horses at sanctioned competitions that have resulted in a yellow card, and 3 accidents thus far this season.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Callie at this time? Okay, I'd like to open the line for any other further discussion or questions or items that people would like to bring to the table. Okay, well that was very quiet and pretty pain-free. Okay, so we will conclude the call unless anybody has anything else to bring forward, and this call will be on the EC website for anybody who missed the call. So feel free to share with any colleagues. And we will also make sure to post the websites and the slides mentioned today on the site. Thanks very much for attending, everyone, and have a great afternoon.